We spoke yesterday about this, more so with the Jets, leaning towards skewing more with the Jets. But, who has it worse right now? Who's in a better position? And they're both in terrible positions. But I tend to look at it as the Giants because we know they're getting a complete clean slate next year. Whether it's just on the roster side of it or in the front office coaching side of it also. And a lot of that is going to start in April with the draft. And the Giants currently sit solely in possession at 2-13 with the number 1 overall pick. And I do not think that is changing anytime soon. As they play the Colts and they finish the season with the Eagles, which may be a painful one for Giant fans. If that is the game that Saquon, I know extended season and people are going to naysay it, it's still an amazing feat in this era of diminished running backs. But if Saquon breaks that record against them, but I am getting off topic. That is not my point. But like I said, who has it worse? They both have it terribly. Neither situation is great, but at least the Giants, there's one option. There's a variation to that one option, whether it's with this current regime or not without this, or without this current regime. But is they are going to look to draft a quarterback and begin their full clean rebuild. And if they win too early in this rebuild, it'll be with a young roster, with a young quarterback, with not a roster hamstrung by the previous regime. Because they're either going to get Shane and Daboll or just Shane with their first true full clean slate of the cap to really work with it, and the small pieces they've added, Drew Phillips, Tyler Nubin, Malik Neighbors, Brian Burns on the veteran side. So they will have more flexibility. Or it's going to be with a completely new regime, no Daboll, no Shane, and a guy coming in that is not hamstrung like this current regime was hamstrung by Dave Gettleman. With the Jets, there is multiple options. And again, 888-808-1019. For Jet fans, I want to know which way you want to go with this. For Giant fans, I will get to my question in a second. For Jet fans, you could go run it back with this team, whether you draft a young quarterback or not, or go a different route, run it back with this team. Or you run it back with the roster and bring in a new quarterback, whether that's a veteran or a young guy, or complete rebuild. I tend to lean towards the complete rebuild. And last night I mentioned how Woody Johnson needs to learn from James Dolan, a very crazy sentence to say right there, about how to step back and let the football people do the football jobs. Let the football people make the football decisions. I digress. When it comes to the Giants, though, they're going to be picking 1. At worst, 2. And I sit here and I ask you, Giant fans, do you want Cam Ward? Do you want Shedeur Sanders? If you want another quarterback, let me know, but you shouldn't be picking that guy at 1. And for me, the answer is simple. It is Shedeur Sanders. For me, and I love Cam Ward. I think Cam Ward is great. I think Shedeur Sanders is special. I think that a lot of his story and his play gets overshadowed, one, by he plays with a guy in Travis Hunter who may be the best player in college football. Yes, he won the Heisman, but I mean as far as going into the NFL draft. But he's probably not going to get picked 1 because someone is going to be searching for a quarterback. I envision that, and let's say it stays as it is right now. Tankathon, Giants, New England, Jacksonville, Tennessee. New England and Jacksonville, one of them may trade back to a QB-needy team, and one of them may draft Travis Hunter. But if the Giants get the first overall pick, do you want Cam Ward? Do you want Shedeur Sanders? I think Shedeur Sanders is special. I think Shedeur Sanders has shown me stuff in college that gives me more confidence than the other guys that we've overhyped. And he isn't overhyped. He hasn't gotten this it's been more about his father. It's been more about Travis Hunter. Shedeur has not played with a good offensive line. He plays in a power conference. Is constantly taking punishment. We've seen at times at the end of games that are blowouts that they're still throwing the ball, and it's like, Dion, Save your son. Save the child. He's not a child. It's just a poor joke. But I think he's special. I think he can show you a lot in year one that even if you're not winning, if you only win 5 games, you're like, that's the guy. Because that's the key. Winning games next year will be nice. You know, I always bring it back to my team, the Broncos. The Broncos making the playoffs is fun no matter what. It's the fact, a guy that I've crushed, I crushed Peyton, and I crushed the Broncos for taking Bo Nix, and he has looked the part. You see it. That's exciting. Making the playoffs is exciting, but you made the playoffs with Daniel Jones, and a lot of you didn't see that in Daniel Jones. Shedeur is that special to me. And the notion that this is the stupidest narrative in all of football, college or NFL, that whoever drafts Shedeur Sanders is having a Deion problem. You're going to have Deion around too much. He runs a power conference team. He's not going anywhere. He's not going to the Cowboys. He's not going to the Giants. He's coaching the Colorado Buffalo. They are going to be legit contenders. He is building a program. He's not getting the transfers and the recruits he's getting and then leaving next year. He's not doing that. He got a lot of flack for what happened at Jacksonville State or Jackson State, forgive me, whichever one it was. He got a lot of flack for that. People tried to make him out like he went high and dry. No. He wanted to prove himself. He didn't go to the best. He could have probably ended up waiting a year and went to Florida State. He went to one of the worst teams at the time in college football. And they were a one bad loss away from being in the college football playoffs, or at least playing in the conference championship to get to that point. And Shedeur had a lot to do with that. Shedeur has a lot to do with Travis Hunter. Imagine Shedeur Sanders and Malik Neighbors. And it has nothing to do with them playing catch at the Heisman ceremony. Again, overblown. But the notion that they shouldn't draft Shedeur because of his dad, dumb. Check one. The notion that they shouldn't draft either of these guys because it might be a risk, dumb. If they're keeping this regime and they don't draft a quarterback, that puts this team in a weird position of having to be in the playoffs next year. Or at least finishing with 9-10 wins. And then you've won too many games to draft a QB, even if you traded out of that slot. I think Shedeur is the real deal. I think Shedeur is, has a mentor that happens to be his father who went through the NFL. That is huge. He's probably been around the NFL a lot. How many times? Jalen Brunson, perfect example in this city. Prince Fielder. Barry Bonds. Ken Griffey Jr. Guys who grew up, Vladimir Guerrero Jr., guys who grew up around professional athletes. Guys who grew up with professional athletes as fathers. I know there's a lot of other negative ways to look at that. But how many times have we seen these guys grow up around it and they've been better for it? Patrick Mahomes' dad played in baseball. Yes, not the same as football, but he saw what it takes to be a pro athlete. He saw the things he has to navigate outside of playing the game. Unfortunately, thankfully for Travis Hunter, he does have Deion Sanders to guide him. Because what he's going through that doesn't have to do with football right now is one of the more ridiculous things. The comments about him and his girlfriend. Why do we care? When did football and all this turn into TMZ? I know they cover sports now, but I am getting off topic. If you're a Giant fan, 888-808-1019. And Jeff fans, you can answer this question too. You just have a more complicated draft question. And it could be more about the overall direction of your team. Head coach, yada, yada. Giant fans, if you're drafting a quarterback, which one do you want? And if you don't want to draft a quarterback, I want you to hear what you're going to do with your top pick and the roster construction of this team. I like Cam Ward. I love Shedeur Sanders. I look at them as very good, I look at Shedeur Sanders as special. I think after that, it is a weird road to travel with the quarterback position. I don't want the kid from Georgia, Carson Beck. I don't want Quinn Ewers. I think the Texas quarterback you want is Arch Manning. And I'm not one of these people who says, let's tank it till Arch comes out. Because we saw guys like Trevor Lawrence take till Trevor Lawrence comes out. What has that gotten them? And then you see guys, Jaden Daniels kind of came on the scene late last year. Bo Nix, I hated the pick. Justin Herbert, I've been very critical of him, but no one saw that guy being what he was. I think Mike Tannenbaum was like the only guy in the media who really played that up. And yes, there are, for every one of those guys, there's a Zach Wilson. There's a Sam Darnold. There's a Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones outlier there. Sam Darnold was can't miss. The Broncos wanted to trade up for him, and they didn't. Thank God they didn't. But when I look at Shedeur, I look like a can't miss. I see a can't miss prospect at the most important position in sports. And then you're saying, well, the Giants' offensive line isn't good. His offensive line in college was terrible. The Giants have a weapon. It's not that Colorado doesn't have skill position players. They do. But Travis Hunter and him is what made them special. Maybe having a competent quarterback play will allow for a pass rush coming into the season that I thought was one of the 5 best on paper. Brian Burns, Dexter Lawrence, Kayvon Thibodeau. And for the Jets on the other side of that, another Colorado buff I would want to see them chase is Travis Hunter. If you're the Jets, and let's say the Giants and somebody else take a quarterback 1-2, what are you saving draft picks for if you're running? This is if they're running back with this team. What are you saving draft picks for? Because you're not winning. If you go out there and run it back with this team, regardless of what you do at quarterback, let's say you bring in a veteran quarterback. What are you doing with this team? Why are you saving the draft picks then? You should blow up draft capital and go get Travis Hunter. Because 1, you're getting a generational talent. 2, you could slot him in at 2 positions you need help at. I know you have Adams and Wilson. You certainly need help at corner. To add him to DJ Reed and hope Sauce Gardner bounces back would be elite. If he plays wide out, you now have a stacked, maybe the best wide receiver room in the league. And I don't know who to believe. You know, early on I saw reports saying that everyone views him as a wideout. Then Jay Glazer 2 weeks ago, said everyone views him as a cornerback. I think he would lean towards wideout because of the money. I think corner he's more valuable at because it is tough to find elite corners. It is tough to find elite corners that do it year in and year out. Look at Sauce Gardner. You know, don't want to date myself. Nnamdi Asomugha, for 2 years, looked like the best corner in the league, playing as well as Champ Bailey and Darrelle Revis at the time. It is tough to find a Champ Bailey type who does it for a decade. Charles Woodson, who did it at 2 different positions, defensive back. Deion Sanders. So if you're the Jets, I would like to see you, if they keep the core of their roster, and the only change is maybe they bring in a Kirk Cousins or a Justin Fields, and they're not going to take a quarterback. Go get Travis Hunter. There's still an avenue for the Jets to get a top 5 pick. I don't know if it happens. They finish with the Bills, and they finish with the Dolphins. I don't know if that's going to happen. I also don't think the quarterback wants that to happen. We saw him chasing a record last week. Do we really think he's going to stop trying to score touchdowns? The one good thing I could see is Cleveland, the Raiders, Tennessee, and the Giants. If Tennessee thinks that Will Levis is the guy, well, somebody's going to get lucky and get a quarterback. I don't know if Jacksonville's going after a quarterback. It'd be tough to see New England have another top 5 pick and take a quarterback a second straight year. Carolina might not lose enough to stay ahead of the Jets. And I don't think they're taking a quarterback. So that would be a team to worry about for Travis Hunter. But I think the Jets could. And it would not, if they next year is a disaster again, and they're not planning on taking a quarterback either way, if next year's a disaster again, you're going to another lengthy rebuild anyway. If Rodgers comes back and you don't draft a quarterback and you stink next year and you don't make the playoffs, it's over. You're not playing Sauce. You're not playing Garrett Wilson. At that point, there's no reason to pay the very talented Breece Hall.
Robbie's ready to talk Giants.
There is no avenue for the Jets that is 100% foolproof, in my opinion. So with this one, let's say it's a veteran QB, stopgap QB, or Rodgers, and you keep this roster, which on paper is a very talented roster. Travis Hunter could be a piece. And if you're going to mortgage your future for him, at least you're mortgaging your future for a two-way talented player, Heisman winning young player. And you're not mortgaging your future for an over-the-hill quarterback again. And for the Giants, the answer is simple. If you're taking a quarterback, who do you want? Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders, maybe somebody else. If you're not taking a quarterback, what are you doing with the pick? Are you trading? Are you drafting Travis Hunter? Are you trading back and punting on next year? Which if they get a new regime and these guys don't love either of these quarterbacks, that could be what they do. I think it would be stupid if you have the number 1 overall pick. Unless the haul is so great and you're only moving back, 2 or 3 spots. 888-808-1019. Robbie in Lake Success. Good morning, Robbie.
Good morning, Anthony. Number one, I've been a proponent for I guess, since the last year when I saw these two guys, especially Dable, but now I know it's really Shane because he puts the roster together. But
right.
Dable, I think, is also horrible. You got to get rid of both of them.
Well, I'll say this, Robbie, before I let you finish. The only one that would stay, if they're going to keep just one, it's Shane. You're not firing.
Well, then but no, I don't want that.
I agree. Listen,
and I'll tell you
I know
why.
we disagree on how I feel about Dayball, but he's gone, in my opinion. Now there's reports that Shane might be the one that stays. But if you're getting rid of Dayball, there's no point.
I can't accept that. Number one, I'm watching the worst. I'm 63 years old, as you know, and I've seen
a very young 63, by the way. I would like to point that out there.
Well, I'm just saying that I've seen since '68 football with this team, so I've seen most of the 100 years. I mean, over half the 100 years of football, and I missed the 40s and 50s. Obviously, with the good years, okay, when they were good back in the day, won championships, got the championship games. Point being, this is the worst organization. This is the worst team I've ever seen in my life.
Oh, I'm not a Giants fan, but obviously living in this market, my friends are all Giants fans. 95% of them.
We have to clean house. Okay, we have to. Let's go from there. I'm trying to set up a situation where I want to go forward. Okay, and tell you my thought on what should be done. So number one, we get rid of both of them. As far as coaching, you have to get the coach in here ASAP and the general manager ASAP. I'm thinking, I really don't have a general manager right now, but I do have a coach, okay? And I want a Belichick, which is obviously not going to happen. Right? You could pay $1 million to get him, but that most likely is going to be late, which means you got to get him in June, all right? So I'm thinking Pete Carroll. I said to myself, he's the only winning guy out there. Hear me out. He's the only winning guy that potentially has a history. I saw one guy. In fact, I threw this out on Twitter about a month ago. Yeah, Pete Carroll's still around. He's got a great track record and done really some good things in the NFL. I want a guy. I don't want any more coordinators. No more coordinators. That's it. I can't trust the coordinator anymore. The only one that I would possibly consider would be Flores, and then with Flores, okay. But I really want Pete, okay.
So you're completely out. You're completely out on a Aaron Glenn or a Ben Johnson type?
No, I don't want a coordinator. I don't want a coordinator.
Okay.
I don't. I want someone who's won in the NFL, who's proven. And now Flores has never been a head coach, but at least he'd be the guy I'd want because he's a New York guy. He's doing great things in Minnesota, but I don't want him.
He also wasn't a bad head coach. There was, a disagreement with the owner and the quarterback that really, sold him up the creek, between him wanting Watson and the owner wanting Tom Brady and then them having Tua. I think that's really what ultimately led to his demise.
But if I can get someone, okay, and remember, it's a big if, I want Pete Carroll in here because he's a proven winner. Now, let's talk about the pick. Okay, let's say we get Peter Flores, okay? If it's Flores, I'm taking Sam Darnold if I can get him in here. And I'll tell you why. See, I wanted him before Barkley. When he was in USC, I said, this guy's the guy I want to draft. Got him and messed me up. He took Barkley. I know he's a great player now, but obviously he's not a great player on the Giants. And he was a good player on the Giants, a very good player. As far as what we do with the pick, if we can get Sam Darnold back here, who I think is a proven, young enough quarterback, if he wants to come, but that's up to Mara. Throw him the money. He'll come. You trade the pick. And you get until like you brought up, you get as many picks as you can, 2 or 3 spots down. Someone who wants one of those guys, so you'll maybe be picking 4th. You'll take their pick. You'll get next year's first round pick.
Well, that is the key there because if you can get, Tennessee, I feel like is that what you were looking at was Tennessee?
Someone along those lines who's dying to get the quarterback. Who's going to be you're only moving down a couple spots, so you're still going to get a great player anyway.
Right.
Okay, and even if you feel like this draft is not the draft for the quarterback, what's wrong with taking a second or third round flyer? Okay, on a quarterback as a shot. What do you got to lose? You're going to lose a third-round pick. But you're going to have the quarterback in place anyway. Because when I say that, I'm talking Sam Darnold here. He's the only guy. I don't want Kirk Cousins. Me and Lori had an argument about that the other day.
I wouldn't want Kirk Cousins either. And
no,
Robbie,
she only felt that Darnold's not going to want to come here. But you know what?
Well, he doesn't want to come to the Jets. I don't think he's got any ill will. And thank you for the call, Robbie. I don't think he's got any ill will towards the Giants. He's not coming to the Jets. Jet fans, you got to break the mold. Rex Ryan, Sam Darnold, move on. Move forward. I would not go after Sam Darnold. Now, what Robbie said, listen, I disagree with it. It's very sound. If you go out there and you get an established head coach or a guy like Flores, I would not want Pete Carroll. I would look at Pete Carroll as, I think everyone's seen what Sean Payton has done and what Harbaugh has done, and now thinks every aging coach can do that. I think Belichick would have been a disaster. I think he's actually better suited for college right now. He could out-coach mostly every college coach. And the way NIL works, he doesn't have to recruit. Everyone's talking about, he's going to go sit in someone's house. Most of the time, it's his guys doing that, his recruiters. You think Greg Schiano's going and sitting in everyone's house? No. And NIL at a school like UNC with Belichick there is going to get a lot of backing. That's why they hire GMs. I would not like to go out and get a Pete Carroll. Now, the Sam Darnold thing, it's tough for me to give you I don't trust him is the best thing I can give you. But when a guy is completing 67% of his passes, 3,700 yards, 32 touchdowns, and 11 interceptions, it's tough to fight on that. And if you think about roster construction, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I know what the Vikings offensive line looks like. But I can tell you this, they have a good receiver room. And the Giants already have one great receiver in Malik Neighbors. Maybe if Theo Johnson develops the tight end. But if they go and add, because Sam Addison is the guy, I've fallen in love with Addison as a player and a fantasy option. But he is their second option after Justin Jefferson. So maybe Sam Darnold comes in here with the right coaching and can continue what he did this year. Because they do have J.J. McCarthy, but they're in the unique position. If they could get Darnold to agree to a 2-3 year deal, you don't have to press McCarthy in there. I think McCarthy's going to stink. That's just me. I didn't think he was that impressive as a college quarterback, and Connor Stallions is not going to be on the sidelines stealing signs for you. So Do you trade that pick? 888-808-1019. We'll get to the rest of your calls after the break. Again, Giant fans, you're finishing 1 or 2. Cam and Shedeur, are you taking one of them? Are you taking another quarterback? Are you trading the pick? Giant and Jeff fans, who do you want to be the coach next year? All that on the fan. We talk Knicks. Knicks are always on the table. Mets and Yankees we'll get to maybe a little later. I'll give you some thoughts later in the show on this whole debate of NBA versus NFL on Christmas. And one of them sure looked like it had a product problem. And I don't think it was the one you're thinking of. Anthony Gallo on the Fan.